Hey, welcome back to the Infamous Podcast. This is Brian.
This is Darryl.
And this is episode 303. And I have yet to come up with the title for it. Anyway, so when you guys download this, you'll know the title. I guarantee it'll be something that I think is witty.
Like, what if T'Challa was a Gary Stew?
Is that a thing? A Gary Stew? No, you still call
that's
them,
what I
you
was
still
asking.
call them Mary Sues, like even if it's a guy.
Yeah.
So,
I like Gary Stew.
I do like Gary Stew. That's pretty funny. So, by the way, the kid told me she saw Supes and Lolo as a hashtag.
As a what?
As a hashtag on Pinterest.
Oh,
We made it happen.
there we go.
You're welcome, Internet. All right.
Just doing our jobs.
I know. So this week we've got some DC Comics comic book news. We're going to talk about Nightwing 83, or at very least the first 2/3 of the book. We have What If episode 2, Gary Sue Boogaloo. We're going to talk about the season premiere of Heels and the season finale of Supes and Lolo. But Darryl, before we get into it, did you know that Denis Villeneuve is supporting Scarlett Johansson for suing Disney?
Yes, I saw that.
So
I meant to tell you that earlier.
And then
when I saw it.
Did you read the article?
Yes.
So he says in all of his contracts going forward, he's going to have the stipulation that his movies have to be released theatrically.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's like, okay, dude, you're not some big box office draw yet. I know you're hoping Dune will be. And trust me, there's very few people on the planet who are more excited for a Dune movie than I am.
True story.
But it's a niche, man. I mean, like, I'm realistic about this. Like, I don't know. He's taking a huge gamble running his mouth constantly about all of this.
But you're right. But somebody has to say stuff like this. And sometimes you have to take chances. I mean, I know Christopher Nolan is very adamant about doing stuff like that as well. I mean, obviously, Nolan's a much bigger name.
Nolan comes with a different cachet, right? He's got a $1 billion movie under his belt.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And you know, even though I'm not a huge Nolan fan, like there's Nolan movies I love, don't get me wrong, but like as a whole, I'm not a huge Nolan fan. Nolan's a good director. Nolan's a director that people like, and Denis Villeneuve makes really beautiful things that are really boring.
I would disagree with that. 100%.
Did you watch Arrival?
Arrival is honestly, I won't say one of my favorite movies, but Arrival is an amazing movie.
But it's boring.
There's nothing boring about Arrival.
And did you watch Blade Runner 2049?
Yes, I really like that, but I could actually see why you would call that boring.
Boring. Plus, it's
that's
like, I'm not a fan of the Blade Runner. Like, I watched it in like earnest. Like, I'm gonna try and enjoy this, and I was bored to tears.
He also directed Sicario, which
again
was
like,
great.
Sicario's good. Like, I like it. Don't get me wrong. I like Denis Villeneuve, so I'm not really bashing him here. But like, he's very deliberately paced.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, there's nothing like slow about Sicario.
So.
I could like you said, when you said something about Prisoners, that's a movie you've told me about and I still haven't seen yet.
Yeah, Prisoners is good, but it's a thriller, so it being slow and boring,
it's a different type,
works for it. So I mean, I'll give you Sicario. But
my overall point is, we talk about with other things, people not speaking up. And yes, he is. He's putting his mouth where his money is,
and
I'll put it that way.
That I support 100%.
Yeah.
I'm behind him on that, and I think that's great.
And besides, I have not just me, but we both have issues with a lot of these studios and movie companies screwing up some of our characters. So
we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, we didn't talk about Tim Drake last week. We're not going to talk about John Kent maybe this week. So yeah, I don't know.
I think that honestly, I think and we'll probably need to talk about that. I think that's something that deserves its own podcast, but not for a specific show.
Yeah.
In the sense of not just talking about Titans or not just talking about Jonathan Kent, but how some of these studios, and not just studios, but these companies, I'll say, are bastardizing characters for reasons other than making good stories.
Correct. So, all right. So that's a perfect segue into our first story. Speaking of trying to make more out of their universe, so DC Comics is coming to Webtoons. Now, were you familiar with Webtoons before I sent you this? Or Webtoon, I guess is what it is.
So it's funny. When I first saw it, the first thing I thought about was Freedom Tunes. So I've heard the name Webtoon, but I've never seen it.
Okay. So Webtoon is owned by a South Korean internet company called Naver. DC and Webtoon are going to collaborate for standalone web comics that will, quote, appeal to all fans without the need to know or read any previous stories, end quote, according to the companies. So it's essentially like fan comics, or not fan comics. It's essentially just indie web comics. It's very Korean, like everything on there is like drawn where characters are a little Asian looking. It's very LGBTQ friendly. It's very, it's for the place where people who don't buy comics might want to go and read comics. So I'm not saying DC is wrong for doing this. And, I think this is just another way to get people more comfortable with digital and the eventual, stopping of the comics publishing industry, which will probably happen in the next 10 years. But the thing where they say without the need to know or read previous stories. So DC's operating under this thing right now called the multiverse, where everything is canon.
And how are they doing with that?
Like Tim Drake is gay now. So he's gonna get ice banned. He's gonna get put on the shelf. They're not gonna use him for another 10 years. Like once they run through all of this, or they're gonna kill him. But Webtoon is huge. It's got 72 million active users, 10 million of which are here in the U.S. And the webcomics
monthly, right?
Monthly, yes. Sorry, monthly active. And it's free. It's free to download on an app. Their website actually, when I go to Webtoons to look at some indie comics that I like, I typically like doing it on my browser because I don't know. I just do. It's weird. I love reading Comixology on my tablet or my phone, but for whatever reason, I enjoy Webtoons like on the computer. Like Miguel Guerrera from Seven Robots, like he's put a bunch of their stuff up there, which we're probably going to talk to him at some point soon. So, but yeah, it's just one of those things where, a typical like story on there, webcomic, is like 50 to 60 what they call episodes per season, and it's like 50 to 70 total panels.
Okay. I don't mind the idea. I think it's like you said, that sounds like a cool way to introduce people to the idea of a digital space for comics.
Yeah.
The whole without the need to know or read any previous stories, coupled with they say two different people mention that it will appeal to all fans.
I think what would be great is if they kind of siphoned this off for the non-comic buying fan base.
Yes.
Where they can have their versions of the characters over there. Like think Tumblr, right? And then let comics be for people who want to buy comics and support DC and support, everything that they do. Webtoons does have a paid model where you can, I think it's only through the app though. But the first 1 to 3 episodes are free, and then 3 to 5 episodes are behind the paywall, and they're available for 50 cents each.
Okay.
So it's an interesting model. I'm interested to see where it goes. I think, not to get too Shang-Chi controversial here, I think it's a good experiment, and they'll get a lot of data points on how well people react to this kind of digital-first comic and this kind of digital-only storytelling. And then will they at some point decide to put some of this stuff into, a trade paperback collection?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it will be interesting to see, just because of, and I'm actually interested to check out the site itself, not necessarily for this, but just stuff like this that I'm introduced to. A lot of times you introduce me to some of this stuff, and
you're welcome.
I've never heard of this. Let me check it out.
You're welcome. But
so yeah, I'll definitely check this out. I understand why they're doing it, and I think it's actually a good kind of experiment. I don't think it's going to appeal to all fans, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely not. It's not going to be an all fans kind of thing. So, but anyway, speaking of comics that don't appeal to all fans, we had Nightwing 83 come out this week, written by Tom Taylor, penciled by Bruno Redondo and Cyan Torme. Anyway, with inks by the same and colored by Dario Lucas. But yeah, so Tom Taylor has been going back at people who have complained about the end of this issue on Twitter, and it's that's the thing. It's dude, stop. Please stop doing this. Okay, if someone says something nice to you, I never see you respond and say thank you. I never see you respond and say, dude, that's awesome. It's only if someone says something bad and then you say something horrible to them.
Okay, look, I understand when you create something, it's very much a part of you. And you might be a little bit, it might bug you, or if people don't like it. However, with that being said, you're a professional. You should know he's been writing how long?
A decade, at least.
How do you not understand this? I mean, and this is just stupidity.
I mean, honestly,
he's
probably been writing his whole life. Let's just be fair.
Yeah. Everybody is not going to like the stuff that you write. Everybody's not going to like the stuff that you create. And, if they say that, and again, it's a difference when people, call people names like, oh, you're a dumbass for doing this or whatever. Mm-hmm. But if somebody has, and again, a lot of these people, and this is the thing that they try to do. The few comments that are like that, they try to blanket everyone who doesn't like it like that. Again, we can go to Star Wars, any of this stuff. But for this, half of this issue I liked. The other half,
two-thirds of this issue is just on par with how good Tom Taylor has been. And
again,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and as not a Nightwing fan as much as you are, you've pretty much got me into this new run. When it first started.
Well, I mean, this is the end of the first story arc, right? This is the end of the first trade paperback, essentially. Right. And I'm a fan. I bought page 3 from episode 82. I bought it. I'm going to get it framed. It's amazing.
Okay. I was going to ask if you had it hung yet.
No. Well, no. I'm going to take it over to the place where I got the Cyclops and everything else framed and get it nice matte. I'm actually going to try and do the blue, a black matte with the blue line instead of the yellow line that's in Cyclops. Mm-hmm. But anyway, So the main issue is I'm not mad about this issue, right? I'm surprised that he used Nightwing as a mouthpiece for his agenda, mm-hmm. which he hasn't done yet. This is the first time he's really done that, and it's some of the stuff he says is definitely things that Dick Grayson believes and would do. But on the other hand, when he's talking about well, now I'm a billionaire and no one should have that much money. This is a man, who grew up with a billionaire who he never once questioned about, hey, why aren't you spending your money this way?
Yeah.
Right. And it can be argued that Bruce Wayne wasted his fortune where he could have done a bunch of other stuff. But the other thing too is a lot of his is like overly simplistic about like housing and mental health and things like that. And it's just kind of like, if he was gonna, like, he was gonna do this, and I knew Dick was gonna use his money for a foundation, and I almost would have guaranteed, I actually would have almost bet my house it was going to be named after Alfred. But at the same time, like, it was just, some of the stuff was a little out of character. Now, that being said, this is the only negative in the book.
Mm-hmm.
The only negative. And honestly, other than like some weirdness in the second issue, which we talked about like back when we reviewed the second Nightwing 80, or what was it?
79?
76?
Or 8?
No, it was, I don't know. Anyway, it was in the 70s. Anyway, yeah, it would have been 70, 77. It was 78. Sorry. Other than 1978 with Nightwing 78, which had some issues, this is like the first kind of misstep he's taken. But I will say this. There are two, well, there's a splash page and then a page where Dick goes to Metropolis to talk to Superman. And I told you, like, it got weirdly dusty in my house when I was reading it. Mainly because one of my favorite relationships in all of DC Comics is Dick Grayson and Clark Kent.
Yeah. And even as someone who, again, granted, I've always been a Superman fan. Over the years, I've read a lot of different Superman comics here and there. I've never read until, I've seen Nightwing. I've seen him when he was, Robin, but I never read his Nightwing comics really until now. So I don't have that same connection. And even I thought that was such a beautifully written and paneled scene because he even mentions well, you're the one that, gave me the name or gave me the idea of the name Nightwing. And I just want to run this by you. And then when Clark tells him, I'm going to have to go away for a bit. I would really love you to watch out for Jonathan.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just such beautiful writing. And it's not that the ending trumps or like overshadows what comes before it. It's the fact that it comes at the end that it sticks with us a little bit more.
Right.
So for instance, if this happened in the beginning of the book and everything else happened, or if this happened in the middle of the book,
if it would have been the beginning of the next issue, where like this issue could have ended where like, hello, I'm Dick Grayson, fade to black, right?
Yes.
And then the next story arc kicks off with the Alfred Pennyworth Bloodhaven Restoration Project. Like, it hits way different. Now, I understand because they didn't do that because there are 1, 2, 3, 4 pages that they had to get to that.
Yeah.
I mean, to get to the end. And it's not all 4 pages of him talking, but at the same time, like, there's payoff. You get everyone reaching out to him. You get Bruce giving him the call, and that was great. And then you have Heartless at the end.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where it's just for the first time since he's been writing Nightwing, this was a self-insertion that we have not necessarily seen, and it's weird.
Oh, and one of the things I told you. And again, this was because I'm not as familiar with Dick Grayson and Nightwing, is when I read that I just kind of had that cocked eyebrow, and I didn't want to put my prejudice in the sense of some of the virtue signaling that a lot of writers do on this. So I thought to myself, I wasn't sure if this was Dick Grayson, if all of this stuff he said was his character, because you have to differentiate. And this is where a lot of writers aren't able to do. They can't differentiate between themselves and the characters that they're writing.
Okay. So again, I'm not going to call this a full virtue signal because I don't think it is.
Yeah.
But I definitely think it's a insertion of the writer, in this case, Tom Taylor's political leanings. And again,
Yeah.
that in itself is just real quick. That in and of itself is not a problem. Like I expect to see some of that. But when it's so diametrically different from what the character has been as written by Tom Taylor, I'm not even talking about the history of the character, by Tom Taylor, then yeah, it's just weird.
Yeah, and again, like you said, you even said there were some things that he said it would definitely Dick Grayson. So I wouldn't put that. I would absolutely say some of this was a virtue signal, but it wasn't full on because, like you said, if some of these things you could see Dick Grayson doing or Dick Grayson saying through Tom Taylor, then I don't have as much of a problem. It's just like you said, it was overly simplistic, and it reminded me of Captain Falcon's speech at the end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where he goes on this diatribe.
That was 100% a virtue.
Yeah, and again, I think this one is done better because one, the lead up was better. You had 6 issues of very strong, tight writing. Mm-hmm. When the Falcon and Winter Soldier was a mess from the start to finish. It's a big difference, but
that's being very kind. Just calling it a mess.
But there was a simplicity of what Dick was saying. It reminded me of the simplicity of Sam Wilson saying "do better."
Yeah. Okay.
So
just kind of to wrap up, right? This is a good issue. This is not a 5-star issue like last month and the month before that, but like this is a 3.5 star, 4-star issue, depending on the leeway you want to give. There is, again, amazing art in this book. There's a point where Dick and Blockbuster are fighting on a roof, and Blockbuster calls in a helicopter, and they're like, run, and he's like, I am running, and they're like, you're not running away, and he goes, no, I'm running towards the helicopter. That's my ride out. And it is just, it's beautifully like just. Not just the art, but the way the whole thing, the whole fight was plotted. Like it was a great. This is an example of a symbiotic writing and art team working together to tell a story in a sequential manner. And like if I were teaching a comic book class, like I would use page what is this? Page 7 through page where does it get there? Through page 12 as like example A of how comic books should always be done.
Yeah, I was just going to say this is a perfect example of why people love comics. It are that, like you said, that symbiotic relationship, that synergistic relationship between author, between the writer, the artist, the colorist, the inker, all that stuff, just working together to just pop.
I mean, and look, we can disagree with Tom Taylor. We can be disappointed in how he closed this story arc out. That doesn't take away anything from this arc, anything from this being one of this being the best 6-issue Nightwing arc since Rebirth started. Mm-hmm. Plain and simple.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it doesn't even ruin the issue for me.
No, it didn't
the
ruin
issue
it for
itself
me
for me.
Like when I rated it on Comixology, I gave it 4 stars.
Yeah, I would give this a 3.5. It just by what I've seen throughout, it wasn't as strong as any of the what came before it, but it don't get me wrong, this did not ruin it for me at all.
Yeah,
it was just one of those things where, and again, it was more for me because it just seemed off from the character that I've read in the last 6 issues. Not some of it, but again, I don't have that history of Dick Grayson, even from the last year or so. So let alone his massive history. So that's why I actually took a step back before making a judgment, just because I wasn't sure how much of this was the character versus the author. And again, even though like some of the stuff was a little bit over the top for me, I still really enjoyed it, and I thought this was a phenomenal story arc.
100%. 100%. All right. So speaking of story arcs that weren't phenomenal. Man, I want to be positive about this. So we're gonna get to what if episode 2. What if T'Challa became a Star-Lord? That's the title of this episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
A Star-Lord. Matthew Chauncey, I don't think watched Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, and whoever's the editor, as far as story editor for continuity's sake, again, we know it's a what if. However, with that being said, you can't just say because this is a what if, this happened this way when something so specific as a name. You can't just say, okay, because it's a what if, we can just sloppily.
I will tell you this. Matthew Chauncey is the story editor for What If.
Well, Matthew Chauncey.
For the whole series of What If.
So I'll just say this, to quote Falcon, do better.
Yeah, right? Well, I mean, it's too late. It's all done. It's all in the can. So, maybe find a different story to not edit in your next role. So I like this. So while you were just talking, I just thought of the title for this episode. Is there such a thing as a Gary Stew? We're going to make it happen. All right. So this episode starts in 1988 when the Ravagers are sent to Earth by the Celestial Ego to retrieve his son Peter Quill, but mistakenly abduct a young T'Challa from Wakanda who is not wearing a vibranium necklace. He joins them to explore the galaxy. 20 years later, T'Challa has become a famous galactic outlaw mercenary. See, that's not right. He's not an outlaw mercenary. He's I don't even know. He's like a god, out there.
He's Gary Stew.
Yeah. And they call him Star-Lord. And so did T'Chaka get busy with Peter's mom, and that's just what she called all her little boys? Oh, you're my little Star-Lords. Oh, I love you so much, my little Star-Lords.
And again, see, this is one of those things from the beginning. It seems like it's a small thing when he tells Korath, right?
Yeah.
The pursuer, yeah. He tells him his name is Star-Lord. Yeah. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
It seems small, but that was important for things to come in this episode.
Well, right, because he's like, my name is T'Challa, but you might know me by another name, Star-Lord. And then Korath gets all serious face, and then literally is fangirling where he's fanning his hands at his face, and he's like, oh my god, oh, and he's gonna pass out, and it was so ridiculous. And then it just got worse from there.
Yeah. It just went downhill.
He domesticated Thanos.
Thanos the neutered, you mean?
Yeah.
That's what I have in as Thanos the neutered.
Yeah. Oh.
So again, I will say this. I still like the voice casting. And again, that's because most of the people...
I mean, the voice casting is the MCU actors for the most part. I mean, they got Josh Brolin. That was cool.
Yeah. The action is good. Again, it's not I don't think it's as strong as what we saw in Captain Carter, but it's still good. I liked it. I did really like the idea of the heist because, we did an episode last year about heist films.
Yep.
And I love the play on the heist. And I just love how heist, and you think what's going on, and then the movie takes you back to what actually is happening.
Yep.
I did like that part. I did. I really did.
Yeah. And I mean, it had the whole triple cross thing, and that's always fun.
So I did enjoy that. So don't get me wrong. There were parts of this I enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the parts that I didn't enjoy really affected my viewing of this, and I thought it was a far inferior episode to what we got last week.
Right. Yeah, 100%. The first episode was really good. It was it was just fun, even though Steve was her Baymax, and her basic mode of transportation everywhere they went. It was fun and it was good. What?
That's a strong reference right there.
I mean, it's like, she literally is holding on to him like Hero does to ride Baymax.
That is pretty accurate.
But like in this one, like, rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman, 100%, right? But like, it was too much. It was just too much. I told you, this is like the Terry Crews, like Black Lives Better thing, where like Peter Quill at the end of this is a goddamn janitor at a Dairy Queen.
Yeah.
And it's Peter Quill, regardless of what happened, was a capable character. He was a Ravager. He survived on his own. He brought the Guardians of the Galaxy together. He kept them together. If he had not been overcome by emotion when he figured out that Gamora died.
Ego.
No, he would have figured out Gamora died in Infinity War. It would have been over right there.
Yeah.
So it was just
what we say all the time, not what we say all the time, but one of the things of poor writing and agenda and poor writing is when the only way you can build up one character is tearing down another character.
Right.
And they do this.
Captain Carter did not do that. They did not tear Steve Rogers down one bit. They actually made it where, like, regardless of the super soldier serum, Steve Rogers was going to find a way to be a hero.
Yes. And that's actually what I was a little bit afraid of, is that they were going to do that to him and make him kind of that useless in distress character instead of
he was going to be the damsel in distress.
Yes. And in this case, not only is and the funny thing is, you don't have to do this with T'Challa. No. T'Challa is a strong character, but what do? They neuter Thanos.
I think we should call him Stanos, because that was not Thanos. that was his more effeminate younger brother, Stanos.
Yeah. They make Korath the simp for T'Challa.
The same with Drax.
The same with Drax. And again, we saw what they did with Peter at the end. Yeah. And they didn't need to do that.
Yeah. They stole Jessica Rabbit's gig and gave that to Nebula. I guess you could also say she was 7 of 9. Ass talked about that on his. I thought Jessica Rabbit, but like when he said 7 of 9, it's like, oh yeah, she had the blonde hair, the little eyepiece that was covered by the blonde hair, and yeah, I get it.
And the other thing you told when we talked about it, you said, and this is another one, they told us an awful lot about how great T'Challa was. They didn't show us an awful lot.
We did not get to see one single thing about why he was great.
Yeah.
So, and then the other thing with the Collector, the Dark Elf knife, Mjolnir, Captain America shield, all sitting in his collection, was just the most fan servicey, stupid, just unnecessary bit of anything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was unnecessary. And again, this was one of those episodes where they didn't show restraint.
Correct. So Matthew Chauncey, other than writing this episode and being the story editor on this as a whole, has one other writing credit called Three Below Tales of Arcadia, which is a Netflix series that I've never heard of.
That is the how do I say this? That was like the secondary tale from like a spin or an offshoot of what's it called? Troll Hunters.
Is it? Okay.
And and they ended up in the third, I think the last season of Troll Hunters, like the Tales of Arcadia joined up with them or something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, that's where that's from.
So I really liked Troll Hunters.
I thought, Troll Hunters.
Here's my problem.
A lot of fun.
When they first released it, they released 26 episodes all at once.
Mhm.
and I never got through it.
I got through the first 2 seasons of it.
So yeah, I mean he was story by teleplay by for 8 episodes on Tales of Arcadia. So I asked you this question, and I like when we were talking earlier in the week, and I want to know, when did Marvel Comics in the MCU become the entry level job for Hollywood?
I don't know. This is
I can
this
tell.
is
I'll
wild.
tell you exactly when it happened. Captain Marvel. Captain
Was
Marvel
that the
was
first?
the first movie where they had these directors who hadn't really done much of anything or anything anything of note, really, and they hadn't done any action or big budget movies and things like that. And it was Anna Boden. Oh wait, sorry, no, yeah, Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck, and they were out of their depth. And we talked about this. This was it was a very immaturely written and shot movie.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
that is what we see. That's what happened with Black Widow. That's what happened with Sylvie. That's what happened with Virtue Signal and the Neutered Soldier. And to be honest, like, if WandaVision hadn't been so outside of the box creative, I don't know if Jack Schaefer would have pulled that off, because Jack Schaefer was part of the writing team on Black Widow.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I don't understand why they've decided to dilute their product so much with people who have no right. No, let me rephrase that. Who have not earned their place to write some of these characters, like the comics is a big example too. Like, it used to be you'd start off on like Booster Gold or like Beetle, Blue Beetle, or in Marvel you would be writing like a Moon Knight book, or Squirrel Girl or Daredevil, or not Daredevil, let me rephrase that, or like a Black Widow book, things like that. You would cut your teeth on that for like 12, 18, 24 issues, and like you would prove yourself, and then you would move up and you'd be like, okay, you go from Black Widow to Daredevil or Avengers or something like that. And then, Doctor Strange. And now it's like they give these people like flagship books, and they give them flagship movies and flagship shows. And yeah, I mean, you look at the first round of movies. We're talking Joe Johnston, Jon Favreau, Kenneth Branagh. That's the first 3, not counting the Richard Linklater, or not. That's not right. Not counting the Incredible Hulk, right? Was that Richard Linklater? I'm sorry, yeah. Oh, sorry, Louis Letterer. Thank you.
However,
yeah. So, but I mean, he's a known quantity. But of those 3, you have Jon Favreau, who at that point was already a name, who had done a bunch of great stuff. You had Kenneth Branagh, who is a fantastic director that people thoroughly enjoy and we're excited about. The Dutch angles and kind of, whatever, did not get people super hyped for Thor, or as hype as they should have been. And then you had Joe Johnston with Captain America: The First Avenger, which is still the most rewatchable Marvel movie ever made.
Oh no, I wouldn't say
No,
that.
I'll fight you on it. I will fight you on it. We'll gee up. We'll get in the ring, and I will fight you.
Kumite.
Yeah, Bamo. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, but then you go to like, you have the Russos come in, you have James Gunn come in, like, keep doing that, like bring in that level of directors, right?
Yeah. And look, I'm the person, I'm all for, taking chances on new talent. The thing is, when you have something this big, you don't just give a series to someone who hasn't, like with Captain or Falcon and Winter Soldier, whatever you want to call it. I don't care. someone who has very, very little in the way
with Malcolm Spellman.
of
Yes.
yeah, and again, you could tell it was very messy. And look, when you mentioned Captain Marvel, that was one of the things we said after we watched this film. We're like, this movie could have been good if you had a better director and the script wasn't shite, because the script was terrible.
I know people love the Joker, but I think if Todd Phillips doesn't direct that, if you give that movie to somebody else, you don't get Todd Phillips trying to make a Martin Scorsese movie. You get someone, you get David Fincher making a Joker movie.
Yeah. Oh,
But I don't know. Anyway, all right. So out of, just watch it. Like, the animation is really good. I like the animation. Like you said, the voice cast is great. But at the end of the day, this is like amateur hour at Disney Plus Marvel Studios.
So the He-Man, the new He-Man and the Masters of the Universe trailer came out a couple days, or was it yesterday?
You mean Troll Hunters
anyway,
and the Masters of the Universe?
Yes, that's what I was going to say. This reminded me, just by the type of humor and the way the story went, it looked more like something like that aimed at kids than it did aimed at MCU fans.
It's for kids. He-Man, definitely. All right, so let's wrap this one up. So out of let's say 5 Gary Sues or Gary Stews, what do you give?
I'll give it a 2.
A 2?
Like
I'm going 1.5, and the only reason I'm giving it the 1.5 is because the animation is so good and the voice cast was so good.
Yeah, 2. That's all I have to say about that. The further away from this one I can get, the better.
All right, let's move on. All right, so now to something we liked. Heels. Episode 1, Kayfabe. On Stars, directed by Peter Segal, written by Michael Waldron. Again, the guy who's the showrunner for Sylvie. I refuse to call it Loki. It's anyway.
That wasn't Loki.
No,
that wasn't Loki.
Was Loki. All right, so I'm just gonna read the summary real quick because it's a sentence long. 2 brothers and rivals, one a villain or a heel in professional wrestling, the other a hero or a face, play out scripted matches as they war over their late father's wrestling promotion and vie for national attention in small town Georgia. So this is the Stephen Amell wrestling show that we were talking about. It's got Stephen Amell as Jack Spade, Alexander Ludwig from Vikings and Bad Boys for Life as Ace Spade, Allison Love as Stacy Spade, Mary McCormick. I was shocked. I didn't even realize Mary McCormick was in this as Jack Spade's partner in crime, Willie Day. It's got Kelly Berglund, who she plays Crystal Tyler. If you guys watch The Goldberg, she was Ren, Barry Goldberg's girlfriend. But then like James Harrison from the Steelers is on it, and he's really good. Chris Bauer, who plays Wild Bill Hancock. Chris Bauer is the quintessential that guy actor.
Yep.
And then reoccurring right now, what we have is James David Elliott as Tom Spade, who is the late father of Jack and Ace Spade. CM Punk is going to show up at some point as a character named Ricky Rabies, with Bonnie Somerville as his valet, Vicky Rabies. So
Rabies.
Ricky and Vicky Rabies. Say that 3
That's
times
hilarious.
fast, right? It's amazing. I will say this, let's see. I think was Black Sails on Stars?
Yes.
Okay. In the one, not Da Vinci. Was it Da Vinci? The one about Da Vinci or whatever?
Yes, I think it is. Which I actually might watch that because I've been trying.
I was trying to
last
see
time
if
I had Stars.
Was it on? Was it on there?
It.
I didn't even look.
Da Vinci's Demons.
Yeah. Da Vinci. Oh, no, that's not how you spell demon. Let's see.
I believe it is, or it's either that or Showtime.
Yeah, I don't remember. So, um, okay. Oh yeah, it was on Stars. So it might be on Stars. So so like Da Vinci's Demons was good. Black Sails, I understand is good. I've still yet to watch it. And then Spartacus is one of my favorite shows of all time. So when there's something on Stars that hits that like piques my fancy, like I'm typically gonna really like it from just past experiences. And while I say it all the time, but the pilot is typically the worst episode of a show.
Yeah.
This was it was a good pilot. It did a really good job like setting the stage of the world. And there was a nice little payoff at the very end of the episode for where it's going to go. My only issue with this show is there's no hero.
Yeah.
That's it. And we might get one at some point, but there's this is just kind of a modern thing in TV right now anyway, right? But there's just nobody to root for.
And it's funny enough because this is a wrestling show. You have to have somebody to root for when you're watching wrestling, or what happens, the crowd gets disinterested.
Right.
And yeah, there are instances in real life where there aren't necessarily heroes in a relationship, like whatever it may be. However, and again, this is where in a writing standpoint, you have to be careful with that, because it comes across, it can come across as too nihilistic in the sense of all this overt drama of both people being, for lack of a better term, shit stains. And
see, I wouldn't call Jack a shit stain, but Jack is very authoritarian.
Yeah, he is. He's a dick. He is. He's not
a dick. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and when I say shit, that was just.
Well,
he is. He's not a hero.
No,
I don't find myself rooting for him.
Right,
that's a problem.
However, I don't think you're supposed to root for him.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, we need somebody to root for.
Right.
That we do it regardless of if it's real life or not. This is a show, just like kayfabe that they do in here. Yeah. You need someone to root for. It for some reason. It's not necessarily they have to be the good guy. Mm-hmm. They have to have something for you to
redeem,
latch on to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah.
Look at him, for example. He was not a good guy, but he had that charisma. He had that special something that drew people in, and then it was over. And again, that was the best time in wrestling back then with him and some of the others.
Yeah.
And
I still I would have loved for this series to have started off with Ace as this just like really upstanding dude, right? And he was a hero inside and outside of the ring. Like everyone in town should love him. And we get the scene in the gas station where the girl calls him out for always stealing stuff, and then he just says the most horrific thing to her. And that's not okay. And it would have been so much better if he was that star quarterback that everybody loved, and he's working his way to try and earn his way to the big time. And instead he feels like he's owed the big time. Mm-hmm. It's this is a very millennial story.
That's very accurate.
And I feel like that's a lot of what we're getting in entertainment. The whole, I am owed this because I exist.
Mm-hmm.
Not
that's I didn't look at it like that, but yeah,
owed this because all right, that is not solely a millennial trait. That is a human trait, but I'm blaming your generation because the age of the people who are writing and acting in these shows, they are millennials. And so I think that's where storytelling is at the moment. I think we're gonna look back at this time of storytelling and be like, what happened to the hero? And how do we get the hero back?
Yeah.
Kevin Smith is right in the middle of Gen X, but he's writing and directing things for his millennial daughter to like.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. But that being said, I'm all in to watch this. I'm all in to see where this goes. I think Steven is great in this role.
Because he's playing Oliver Queen.
He's playing a very poor Oliver Queen. I really liked his wife Stacy, played by Allison Love. I thought she might be the person who I'm rooting for.
Yeah.
Because she's like, dude, let me help. I know how to get things for cheaper. You're just some dumb hick wrestler.
Yeah, and also, was it Crystal?
Yeah,
Tyler.
Yeah, but is Crystal gonna I don't know if she's gonna stick around for the whole series or what, but
yeah. So she could be, and again,
see, here's my fear with Crystal is that they they try and do some sort of a love triangle, or she tries to get with Jack, and break up, just whatever to try and get ahead, which I don't think she's gonna do that. But she's also banging Ace already, so
yeah.
And she's his new valet. That's they've made that very clear at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
But what I really want to see, and I know it's coming because it was in one of the promotional videos that they put out, is she can wrestle. Because there was a promotional video where she hit a Hurricane Rana on a dude in a parking lot. So.
It was hilarious.
That was awesome. And they're both like, what?
So, yeah. Again, this is the first episode. I like what I saw so far.
Yeah.
I thought, like you said, make the Oliver Queen joke, which is not too far off. But at the same time, I think Amel does a great job. Ludwig does a good job playing his role.
I think everybody who acted in this did a really good job.
I was about to say, I'd like everybody in here. James Harrison as Apocalypse.
Right.
And
I never thought I'd root for a Steeler who wasn't Ben Roethlisberger. And I still have a hard time rooting for him.
And a couple of the other supporting wrestlers, like the guy who is going to call it quits because, he wants to do more for his family. So there are little nuggets of, that they put in here that could really pay off. I don't know if it's 8 or 10 episodes that we're going to get, but they did set the table pretty nicely with this first episode. It was a little messy in parts, but again, like you say that all the time.
Yeah.
Generally, the worst episode is going to be the pilot because they're trying to build a world. They're trying to feel things out. So, some of this criticism would happen with almost any pilot that we see. Supes and Lolo, not,
Yeah.
That's a little bit of a different story. Supernatural. Again, there are very few pilots that are from start to finish, just excellent.
Right. Honestly, I think Supernatural is the exception rather than the rule.
Oh, it's absolutely the exception.
But yeah.
Even pilots that I like this one, still have a lot of issues. But the important thing is, I think it sets the table for what we're going to see throughout this season, and I think it does a good job at that.
Yes, I agree. Okay, so out of 5 opening bells, what do you give this one?
Oh man, I just because I think it's going to, I like the nuggets that they gave us. I'm going to put it as a 3.5. I think it's closer to a 3, but I'm giving it a little boost just because I do like, there are a lot of, juicy tidbits that they put out there that could lead this, just make this season take off.
Okay. I'm going to go with a 4, actually. I know I talked a little bit of shit about the episode, but all in, it has me hooked. It has me excited for more. I liked the cast. I like the actors. And I'm hoping that they give us that hero to root for. And the nice thing is it started strong, but it can only go up from here.
Mm-hmm.
And as a baseline episode, not bad at all. Not bad at all.
No.
So
absolutely agree.
All right, let's move on to our bittersweet final topic of the show. I can't believe they killed Superman in this episode.
I know, right?
By the way, we're gonna spoil this. If you haven't seen this, pause and come back. wow. I mean, dismembering Jordan with heat vision, I never thought I would see that on a CW show.
Oh, yeah. I mean, HBO Max, sure. But
by the way, this show, Warner Brothers, I think someone from Warner Brothers might listen to this. HBO Max original, Superman and Lois, seasons 2 through 10.
please.
Make it happen. Get it off of the CW. All right, before we get into the episode, let's talk about the ratings. This was the lowest rated episode of the season. By far. By over 100,000 views.
That is crazy.
It dropped 15% in the demo. It went from a 0.13 to a 0.11. It dropped from 733,000 to 622,000. This was coming off. This is the second week after another 5-week break. The show season 2 comes back in the first quarter of 2022. So this is going to be a mid-season show. I don't know if that's how it's going to be moving forward or not. It's kind of hard to get out of that unless they do like an 8-episode season and then go and, in the fall do, 16, 18, 22, whatever. 15 episodes was the perfect length for this show.
Yeah.
There was not one filler episode.
No. And that's really nice to have when you have 15 episodes and all of them are important to the development of characters, plot, and or both.
I thought this was a super powerful episode. In a lot of ways. It wasn't the best episode of the season, but it goes out on a super high note. It goes out with some feels. It goes out putting every single character's best foot forward, which is what we were just talking about with heels. We know who we're rooting for in this show. We are rooting for Clark. We are rooting for Lois. We are rooting. I keep saying looting. We are looting John Henry Irons' weapons cache. No, we are rooting for John Henry Irons. We were rooting for Jonathan and Jordan and Sarah and Kyle and Lana. Like, this is great. And then we're rooting for Morgan Edge to fail.
Yeah.
And I think we know who the bad guy is going to be next season based on who showed up at the very end of the season episode.
Yeah, that was interesting. I was wondering how they were going to end it because I knew there had to be some type of teaser to get us through. I didn't think it was going to be John Henry.
Bit of a swerve.
Yeah, because for a second, John Henry's talking to Lois, talking about how he has to leave, which I did. There are several scenes in here that I absolutely loved, and when John Henry's talking to Lois about how he has to leave, and then, he's with the family in the house, and he's talking about, hey, I got to go.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking they can't end it there. There has to be something else.
Right. Like, it's not like he's going to go off like Bruce Banner in the Hulk and, walk from town to town saving people in his super suit. I did like the little, well, let's go back to the beginning of the episode. So the last episode ended with Clark going to look for Jordan and not being able to find him. And they're still trying to find Jordan. The people in Smallville are rioting and really upset with what's happening with the DOD still being there and having invaded their town. And, Sarah gets help for John and
General Lane.
General Lane, thank you. Sam Lane. And, it just kind of, it picked right up. The action was going. They kind of regroup. Superman is out looking for Jonathan or Jordan. And in a way that so in the Snyder Cut, when Superman dies and yells and it turns on the mother box, which was dumb. He goes up there and he just yells for Jordan because he can't find him anywhere because Jordan isn't Jordan. He's Zeta Rho at that point. And his dad's voice kind of kicks him back, kind of reboots him a little bit, right?
You're right.
And then he gets there and like he's hugging him and he's like, "Oh, I'm so happy." And I thought maybe Zeta Row was gonna like stay hidden and like, appear later in the episode, but no. Like there was a great like SmackDown battle because obviously Clark isn't gonna hit Jordan. And Zeta is, kind of talking crap to him and everything like that. And it was really good. And it was, again, Tyler Hoechlin, like, crushed it this season as Superman. And watching him have to, like, look at his son with as a villain, but knowing it's not Jordan and having to hold back, it was heartbreaking.
Yeah, and especially the last couple episodes we saw with him having to deal at the end of last week where he has to come to Lois and tell her, I couldn't find our son. I looked, I couldn't find him. And just some of these moments he's had, and again, I told you, I watched the pilot again, and this was like this in the pilot where he is trying to reach out to Jordan. And he has no idea how to reach out. And he's like, asks Lois, he's like, am I a bad father?
Yeah.
And all throughout, and you're right, all throughout the season, Hoechlin has just done a phenomenal job. He's been great. He's been excellent as Clark Kent. He's been excellent as Superman. But he has excelled as Clark Kent, father of Jonathan and Jordan.
Clark Kent,
that is where he...
Clark Kent, nerd dad.
Nerd dad, yes.
So...
That is where, and again, we've talked about this like on air and off air, both of us. That's our favorite portion. That's our favorite character.
He's my favorite character in the show is when he's nerd dad. Now, I will say this, Lois Lane, Elizabeth Turlock, Bitsy Turlock is the MVP of this show.
Yeah.
100%. Lois is a badass in this episode. Like,
absolutely.
Just like going to bat for her family. Standing up to her dad, and then going into Jordan's head to try and rescue him, and just the way she's like going through his mind, and then she's dealing with Zeta Row herself, and she's in a precarious situation. John is guarding them. I mean, that whole like bit there was great. I loved it. I thought it was awesome with the two of them trying to save Jordan, and then when Zeta Row, takes over and is like flies up and is holding Jonathan by the neck, and like you think he's gonna kill him, but like Lois is still in there fighting, and I love that when she finds him, it's in the room from the pilot where he's tearing up the room and he's just like bent over, moaning and wailing, and not licking his palms because he's not trying to get his 9th sick day from school. But that was funny. You were supposed to laugh at that Ferris Bueller joke.
I got it.
How dare you?
You just got a how dare you for that. I wish you could hear that when I did that. That was the first one of the episode. I don't know. Anyway, but like it was such a great bookend from that amazing 5-minute open from the series. I wonder if we unlock Jordan's flight.
I was wondering that too, because yes, it's Zeta Row that, lifts Jonathan up in the air, but it's Jordan that comes down, and they don't just fall.
Because I really thought they were going to crash to the ground, and like
I did too. Honestly,
they haven't done anything in here like mistakenly about his powers. So, like, I'm kind of hoping it's unlocked a little more of his Kryptonianness.
Yeah, and again, like when you mentioned how Lois is the MVP of this show and how great, nerd dad Clark is, and the relationship between Jonathan and Jordan, even the relationship between Lois and her father, and then you throw in John Henry. I said before, in What If, bad writing and agenda writing is when the only way you can pump up one character is bring another character down.
Yep.
This show does such a fabulous job of pumping up every character.
No character in this show tears another character down. Yes. It's not like Supergirl where she was the bestest ever and Clark Superman was susceptible to being evil and able to be beaten down super easy, barely an inconvenience.
Yeah, a jobber, basically.
Yeah, they totally jobbed him out. And, you know, that's not good storytelling. That didn't make Supergirl look cool. It actually made her look worse. And it actually is when Haley was like, I'm not watching this anymore.
Well, that's where I was teetering on the edge anyway. But when that happened, I remember watching that episode and I said some expletives and I was like, I'm done. And I was done after that.
So with Edge in this episode as the Eradicator, right? When he shows up in Smallville and he, you know, essentially infects the 6 soldiers, that was so cool. I really enjoyed that. And, you know, John Henry was doing the best that he could, but, you know, the suit was like low on power. He didn't have the right weapons. But then they all take off and then Superman shows up like 2 seconds late.
Yeah.
I thought that was such a nice touch because, again, it didn't take away from anything. Nobody was a damsel in distress. Nobody had to, you know, compromise in any way. And then they, you know, the Eradicator took the Kryptonians off to go do what they needed to do. And then we get, I got to say, I kind of hope they put the Superman symbol on the Steel suit, and Steel definitely needs a cape. And I want the helmet to look less like a bug.
Yeah.
But the kinetic hammer has worked so much better than I thought it was going to work, as far as not being a MacGuffin, but like being an actual like powerful accessory that puts Steel on par with Kryptonians. And then the teamwork between Steel and Superman is fantastic. And like John Henry's about to sacrifice himself to save, you know, the man who killed his wife on his own planet's family. I mean, that was altruistic. That is an amazing motive for a character. And it's just so great. And then Superman saves him at the last second, which was amazing.
Yeah. So there was a part of me that thought they were going to kill him there. Again, it's not like it was a game because it's a Game of Thrones type show, but just based on his arc and what he's gone through, I think, and we might have talked about this off air, like it was prime for him to make that type of sacrifice.
Yeah.
And I was absolutely holding my breath when he was falling. I'm like, dude, I was like, Supes, get him, please, get him.
Get him. Like, you know,
yeah.
No, I thought it was great. Wally Parks is really, really good in this role. I rewatched Premium Rush the other day because I bought it. Because it's like I really wanted to watch it, and you know he's so good in that as the bad guy, or it's not the bad guy, but as like the romantic rival for JGL. But yeah, it was great. And then, you know, we get this end scene where they're all in the kitchen, or are they out in the barn? I think they're in the kitchen.
Yeah, they're in the kitchen.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, he brought the AI in with him. And they're like, John, a ship is, or, you know, an object is approaching. And they all go out to see what it is. And it's a ship that crashes. And out pops Natalie, his daughter. Now, here's my question. Is this Natalie from his Earth?
I don't know.
Because she said dad.
Yeah.
But this is why I think she's going to be a villain. I don't think it's his Natalie.
I honestly, it was funny because for a second I thought it was another Kryptonian, and
I might have rage quit the show if it had been another Kryptonian.
Yeah, and then I saw the writing on the side of it, and I was like, okay, so who is this? And I didn't connect until she opened it. You know, it wasn't one of those things where I saw the writing. I was like, you know what? I bet it's his daughter. No, it was one of those things like, okay, it's not Kryptonian. Who is this?
Okay, so I have a weird question. If Jordan hooks up with her, is that incest?
No, I would say
they have the same mom. Dude, it's the same mom, just different, different universe.
So if you're in a different universe, do you have the same DNA as your
Sometimes it's
doppelganger?
written backwards. There's lots of different ways that they've done it over the years. But like, is
Well,
the new
dude,
love
hey,
triangle going to be between Jordan and his new girl, and then Natalie? Because he kind of like had a little crush on her from watching those videos.
Jonathan, you mean?
Jonathan, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, hey, Barry Allen, got raised with Iris, and now they're married and they have kids in the future. That's a little bit.
But they're
And
not
Joe
blood
was okay with
related.
it. I know but I would say they're more related than
Joe's
Nat
not only
and Jordan
okay
and
with
Jonathan.
it. Joe encouraged it.
Yeah. Yeah, he did, really.
It's like, what kind of sick
another
bastard
story.
are you, Joe? Joe West. You sicko. Anyway.
So
Yeah. So and then the best thing is Lara's in jail still, and Morgan Edge did not die. So
Yes.
Morgan Edge. So we don't know the status of his powers, if he still has them or not. We don't know, like, how great would it be if it opens up with the trial of Morgan Edge?
Yeah. And I love that the last line we get from him, where it's like, I just wanted a family.
Yeah.
And then Clark, he has that, disappointed, sad, you did.
Yeah.
We were brothers. And then Morgan Edge just like puts his head down
Yeah.
after that.
I know. I loved it because he was like, we were brothers. You were the chosen one. You were supposed to restore the Kryptonians, not destroy them. And remember, I always have the high ground. It was super weird that he went full like Obi-Wan on him, but yeah. No, I mean, it was a great moment. And, like, it's going to be a great like kind of emotional foil for Clark moving forward, knowing that he has a brother. And how is he going to come to terms with Morgan Edge? And how is Morgan Edge going to come to terms with what he did? And then ending with burying Jor-El's sunstone like that was nice. And I'm hopeful that this is not the last we've seen of Jor-El, because I think Superman without a father figure in his life is kind of hard. Like it adds resonance to his decision making and his his inner conflict and turmoil when he's got a dad figure to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah. And I do want to go back to what you said about Morgan Edge not dying.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been so easy, and so many shows do that where they kill the villain. And there are a lot of times where I think to myself, that was a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to do that. And again, I think I was telling you about that the other day. I was like, why do these shows or whatever feel the need to kill characters?
Yeah, I don't know.
And this does the great job of, because like you said, there are a lot of open-ended questions about Morgan Edge that we can still get answers to next season.
Right. So,
and the other thing, neither one of us has mentioned this, but I love the fact that Lana and Kyle get what they deserve from, Kyle's back on the force. And again, I think they are forgiving people, but for me, it would be a little bit tough to these people that I knew from all my life and how easily they turned on me.
Right.
That would be tough to get over. Although, if your town was almost destroyed and everybody came together, that might help ease things a little bit.
Yeah.
But I have to, and again, I'm only human. I would have a hard time, just saying, hey, all's forgiven. After you basically shunned me for something that I didn't do, and something that you all were just as gung-ho about as I was.
Right. Cool. All right. Let's say out of 5 Superman capes, what do you give this episode?
So kind of like I bumped up heels a little bit for what could happen in the season. I'm going to bump this one up for what's happened in the past. Kind of like the like they do in sports sometimes, the award that somebody gets because of their past accomplishments, even though they might not have deserved it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving this a 5 out of 5. I normally probably would have given this most likely a 4.25, but
Yeah.
just by how it encaps just such a powerful, strong, such a fun season,
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving it a 5 out of 5.
Cool. So I was going to ask about the season next. So out of 5, I am going to go 4.5 on this one. I'm not going to give it the benefit of the bump up. Only because I thought it was great. I thought there were some other episodes that were better this season.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
But that doesn't take away from this one. And I'm not comparing this one to the other episodes in the season, but at the same time, it's one of those shows that I really, really liked, and it was a nice send-off for the first season that has enough for, like, crap, what are they going to do next season? Now, if they had announced it was going to be on HBO Max, I would have given it a 5. Anyway, okay, so for the season, out of 10, Lois Lane MVP awards, what do you give it?
I give it a 9.5.
Okay.
I don't want to hit that 10. I didn't really have any issues with it, and I've said this before on multiple occasions. The thing that I love about this show is that, other than Cobra Kai, this is the only show that made me like a kid on Christmas before I watched it. It's not saying it's the best show in
Right.
the last couple of years that I watched. I'm just saying it's the only one of 2 shows that put that feeling on when I knew it was coming on.
Yeah.
Where I was just like, I couldn't wait to watch it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go about a point lower with an 8.5 out of 10. And I'm taking away points because of the and this has nothing to do with the show, but because of the release schedule.
Honestly, that I was thinking about that, like the release schedule.
So I this is the best superhero show since Smallville. I was always a bigger fan of Smallville than I was of Arrow, even though I think season 2 of Arrow is some of the best superhero storytelling that we've seen on TV. But yeah,
Yep.
this is great. Like I told you, this scratches that Smallville itch while at the same time being its own thing, separating itself from the Arrowverse. The fact that they didn't bring in Batwoman or Supergirl or the Legends, like, leans this to its own place in time. And the more that we can forget about the Arrowverse, I think, the better this show will be.
And I know Diggle was in an episode, and they mentioned, his wife, and they mentioned, what is that?
Argus.
what's the Argus.
Yep.
But hey, I'm looking at this as another world. I know the whole crisis, cut these worlds down, and it is, but I liked how it's the best thing they can do for this show is leave it as itself. And the one thing I am very happy about is Supergirl is ending this year, so there's no chance of, well,
Don't you
let
say
me
it.
not say it. Let me not say it.
Don't
I'm done. I'm done.
Don't.
I'm not going to say anything.
don't do it. Don't say it.
I will just say the best thing they can do for this show is keep it in its own pocket universe.
Yeah. Yes. Agreed. Leave it alone. Just don't CW. Don't. All right. Cool. All right. So on that note, if you go to the show notes, and we didn't completely turn you off from Nightwing 83, there's a link to go buy it on Comixology. It'll help us out if you do. And there's also a link to the DC characters coming to Webtoons. That is it's a great read. It's on Variety. So, I mean, it's from a real source. And not that other sources aren't real, I guess. But anyway, cool. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, not yet. I'm trying to think if there's anything that we can look. Are we looking forward to anything next week?
I'm looking forward to not watching Shang-Chi in 2 weeks or whatever. I think they might push it back again.
Ooh, that'd be messed up.
I don't know. All the toys are on clearance. I have zero interest in the movie, but
yeah, that's what it is. It is.
Oh yeah, we do. We've got that Witcher cartoon.
Yes, the 23rd. Yes.
So, yeah, we'll come back and we'll talk about that. We'll have the next episode of Heels. But yeah, so I mean, there's plenty of stuff happening in the world.
Yeah, there's some.
The ScarJo lawsuit drama is there. Anyway, so yeah, all right. On that note, thank you all for listening. Thank you, Darryl. We'll talk to you guys later.
See ya.
Bye. The Infamous Podcast is recorded in Kings Mills, Ohio, just north of Cincinnati. You can find new episodes every Sunday on Apple Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcast, our website, or anywhere podcasts are downloaded. This show is hosted by Darryl Jasper and me, Brian Tudor. To find more information about the show, visit us at infamouspodcast.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Infamous Podcast to keep up with the show. We also have a Patreon page, patreon.com/infamouspodcast. We have some great rewards for our patrons and are looking for help to grow the show to bring you more of the content you want to hear. Music for this podcast is provided by Michael Henry from meetmichaelhenry.com. So, whenever you're listening to us, have a great day, night, evening, weekend, whenever it is, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.